What to do, YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the third album by Jessie J. Basically, this album is called Sweet Talker, and it came out in the fall of 2014. Now, Jessie J had an offhanded kind of popularity in the United States. I mean, Bang Bang was a particularly large hit that crested throughout the second half of 2014. Had Ariana Grande and Nicki Minaj on there, which really helped, and it was just a huge kind of makeshift and blue collar type tune that really crested throughout throughout 2014 and good chunk of 2015 and such. It was just a good kind of mid 2010s kind of blue collar gem. I felt like with it being all over places like Good Morning America and morning television and morning commute and that type of stuff. It was just kind of like another variation of like Blurred Lines by Robin Thicke. I mean, it's not like a clone of Blurred Lines, but it's just kind of in the same variation where it was kind of SFW and Workfare and that type of stuff. Just a good kind of highlighted hit that helped chart things along. But unfortunately, just like what happened with Robin Thicke with Blurred Lines, I think folks were looking for another kind of SFW tune like that, and Jessie J just kind of had lightning in a bottle with that song and just wasn't able to deliver upon that. But it's kind of the thing. There are some other hits on here. I kind of feel like this is somewhat of a choppy album. It's definitely pretty decent pop that has like a lot of good edge to it, and it just doesn't quite have the sheer velocity of Bang Bang. I mean, I look at Bang Bang on Spotify, and that's a song that has over 1 billion plays on Spotify and such. But the other singles, she doesn't even have a second single apart from Masterpiece that has more than 100 million plays. So for the most part, it just is kind of where I feel like some folks would almost think of Jessie J as like a one-hit wonder just because of Bang Bang, and there's just not. When I think of the songs that Jessie J gets played on the radio, I mean, apart from this song, Bang Bang, and then Domino, there's just not a ton of songs that really have like massive kind of popularity in the United States. She's pretty popular in Europe and the UK and stuff, but I look after it like it would almost think, and especially 10 years removed. I mean, maybe back in 2014, you might have caught Masterpiece or Burning Up or something like that, but I kind of look after it as just kind of or the thing about it kind of is that it's kind of this is album is almost kind of like a relic nowadays. And it's not to say it's bad, but it's just kind of the concept that this kind of happened to certain musicians that when they tried to cross over into like the blue collar market and make a song for that and then switch it up and start just having pop tunes for different variables, people just said, oh well, I just like it happened with Fifth Harmony too when they did the song Work From Home, and then people liked that song and liked going to work to that song and that type of stuff, and then they just didn't have more songs like it, and it just kind of sabotaged them. And that's just kind of thing. It happens. I mean, it's kind of the concept. I don't feel like this is a foul album. It's a little bit patchy, but it just doesn't have a hit sheerly on the blue collar scope of Bang Bang. But it does have some other gems in here. But it doesn't exactly have like an electrifying club hit either. It's just kind of where it's something that I would look into in terms of the abstract. It's something that I would look into in terms of the abstractness of it. It's definitely kind of left field and kind of whimsical kind of pop that just doesn't get a ton of mentions, especially nowadays, 10 years removed. But I still kind of feel like the concept is that it's just kind of where it can be overshadowed to be thought of as being a one-hit wonder, but there is some other gems on here. It's just kind of more like secondary and kind of afterthought kind of pop music that just doesn't have as much display as it probably should have. And I think that that's kind of the concept that it needed more display as far as that kind of went. But we'll go ahead and talk about the singles here. So the first single is Bang Bang, and this is a makeshift friendly kind of dance club song. It's SFW, but it has some good sauce to it, and it just has some overall nice energy. I feel like this song definitely has some nice energy to it. I feel like Ariana Grande and Nicki Minaj really helped spruce up this song. And I really feel like Ariana Grande and Nicki Minaj helped spruce up this song. I feel like Jessie J does a good job on this song also, but it kind of feels less like Jessie J's song and more like an Ariana Grande song or something, just the way that kind of went. It's just kind of where the star power of it is large, but it just doesn't feel so much like a Jessie J song just because she doesn't have that many hits to her name. But it's definitely a pretty good one to kind of have in that concept as far as trying to get that. This is just like a pretty classic makeshift kind of work type tune, just a good highlight. Just takes you back to like the mid 2010s, that type stuff. Just kind of has like sauce to it, but it's SFW enough to where you could play it either at work or not at work, just in between. It's a song that you can play at work or not at work, is kind of in between. But I think the concept about it, when I would hear this song at a dance club, it would be kind of one when you think of songs that you listen to 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning at work or something like that, and then you hear it like at 10 o'clock p.m., it just kind of feels offhanded just because of the concept that it's like, oh, this reminds you of being at work or something. This reminds you of like your blue collar life and that type of stuff. This reminds you of your day life. It's not to say it's a bad song. It's just kind of the concept that I feel like there are more turned up songs. I would definitely recommend Burning Up. I mean, this is a makeshift highlight and it does have some pretty good dance jive about it. It is a pretty good highlight if you don't care. It is a pretty good highlight, and I would have to say it does have that jive. It's just kind of a ubiquitous kind of tune, but it's just something that you might be like, oh, hey, this reminds you of like your day life too, as far as that kind of goes. But I feel like Burning Up is just probably a little bit more of one that I would play for like more night type fare, but there's not a ton of songs that really have that on here. This is a pretty almost wholesomely kind of makeshift and this kind of day commute kind of album, but it does have some stuff. So Burning Up is the second single, and this is kind of an almost song for me. Both the second and third singles, Masterpiece and Burning Up, are both almost songs just because they're kind of ones that I like, but I do have some complaints about them. But Burning Up is the second single, and this is just kind of a litty, turned up kind of dance club bops, a little bit more. It's composed, but it's more jivey than Bang Bang. This is one where they loosen up, where Jessie J loosens up a lot more. It's just not quite as SFW. So this is one that's less blue collar oriented, but this kind of still feels composed about it. Still feels a little bit suave in that sort of sense. But the thing that detracts from this song is just the fact that the ad libs. There's like this woman kind of with the thing about this song is there's the thing that detracts from it. Is there's this woman with like these melodic kind of background vocals on like the first and second verse when Jessie J is singing her verses, and it just kind of it makes it kind of have like a ballroom and kind of more social shindig with a lot of people just kind of sounding more festive. But if you don't like that particular song, it can kind of almost be grating. I feel like that's kind of the concept about it, where it's kind of it's good, but it can be grating if you're just not used to it. It's just kind of one where you have to kind of have a learning curve somewhat to it. I think that might have been what detracted as to why the song didn't blow up more, because this just felt like a pretty rave kind of dance club hit apart from that. And 2 Chainz does a good job on here. I liked his verse. He was kind of on some Lil Wayne type vibes, just being pretty lyrical on the song. It was a good fit for him. They don't have those background vocals on his part, but it's just kind of one that just felt like that was a slight derailment as far as trying to get that. So it's kind of the thing, but it's pretty good, decent bop. I would say if you can just, it's just more of an acquired taste. The third single is Masterpiece, and this is kind of an overcoming song. Reminds me a lot of Fight Song. I forget the chick that did that. I used to think that it was Demi Lovato that did Fight Song, but it isn't. It's another chick who was just kind of more of like a one-hit wonder. This is just more kind of blue-collar, Good Morning America, morning commute kind of fare. This one just has a lot more drive towards it, and it's an overcoming. It's not quite a hustle song, but it's kind of like a female version of that. It would be an overcoming song and an empowering song. Has some good pep and a nice blue-collar kind of feel about it, but if you're not kind of in the mood for that kind of jive and motivation, I feel like it just doesn't have quite as much strength to it. So it's kind of one that you listen to when you just have like your day-to-day kind of mentality and just kind of going forth and just having drive and motivation, that type of stuff. But it just doesn't, if you're not kind of within that lighting point as far as how that kind of goes, it doesn't have quite as much strength because it's not a dance club song. It's not really a turned up song. It's not really a weekend kind of song. It's not really a jive dance. Like I think I said dance before. I think not really like a jivey kind of social kind of outing and dance kind of song. So that's just kind of the thing about it. But yeah, so there are 15 songs on the deluxe edition. That's the version I'm reviewing. There's 15 songs on here, and out of those 15, I wound up recommending to you 6 plus the 2 almost songs. So I talked about the 2 almost songs, but the 2 almost songs are Masterpiece and Burning Up. And the 6 songs I recommend would be Bang Bang, Seal Me With a Kiss, Ain't Been Done, Sweet Talker, Strip, and Said Too Much. So I feel like Strip is a nice romantic kind of R&B pep type tune. It's a decent dance gem, and it has like a real upbeat tempo, and it's very bubbly. I definitely like this one. This is kind of one that just like Jessie J kind of has like some 90s kind of R&B type bops on here. Like I feel like Keep Us Together, and there's like another one, Your Lost Unfound, that kind of, maybe not Your Lost Unfound, but there's just some good kind of peppy kind of R&B on here. Jessie J kind of has like some 90s R&B type moments on here, like Strip and Keep Us Together, where I don't recommend Keep Us Together, but Strip is just kind of a nice romantic kind of one for just a regular kind of lackadaisical but still kind of peppy kind of day of just having a little bit of romance in mind as far as that kind of goes. Just very bubbly kind of song that was nice. I feel like Sweet Talker, the title track, is a nice one. This one's another nice one on here is Sweet Talker, the title track. This is one that starts off sullen, has like a glum piano beat in the first verse. It's a very much a slow dance kind of tune, but it spruces up later and kind of becomes more of like an electronic and Tayo Cruz like dance type bop in the second verse and such. The thing about this song though is it kind of has like vibes of like EDM in it, but it's just not quite wholesomely like that. It's interesting that 2014 was starting to step away from EDM and that type of stuff just because getting dance club hits in 2014 when they were so popular, when EDM was so popular in 2012 and 2013. It's just interesting that things were starting to step away from that to see what dance was going to kind of do. So it just didn't, it kind of had like leftover remnants of EDM, but this is kind of one of the more jivey kind of dance pops on here, which I do think this album could have used a little bit more. There are some good dance moments like Bang Bang, Burning Up, and Ain't Been Done, and some of those type moments, but it's just not overabundantly that this album kind of steps out in that sort of context. It has a lot more of like a homely type feel and a more straightforward kind of blue collar type feel. It's just very composed. I think that's the concept that Jessie J, she kind of is, she can be wild, but it's not like her main MO, I would have to say. And that's just kind of the concept about it. So, but another good dance highlight on here would be Ain't Been Done. This is like a real nice weekend gem to cut loose to. It has a little bit more rave energy. It's up there with Burning Up in terms of the raveness of it. It's a little bit more jivey than Sweet Talker, but even if that production was better on Sweet Talker, I mean, this is kind of one that's similar to Talk Dirty by Jason Derulo and Bang Bang. This kind of has that more kind of like, this one that kind of has that more kind of composed and kind of more makeshift kind of pop of like a dance tune that kind of is, but it's just a good weekend gem to cut loose to, and it's a good pair up with Bang Bang. I would have to say both this song, both Ain't Been Done and Bang Bang are two great songs that are very similar just in the concept. This almost could have been a single if the hook would have been a little bit better, but I feel like it's just a nice jivey kind of dance track. It's just a great 1-2 punch to kind of pair up with that. So if you do kind of need like another hit like Bang Bang, that is another one to kind of have that sort of concept kind of wind up happening. It's just kind of the vibe about it. So there are a couple blue collar makeshift type ones for stepping out SFW type tunes. Seal Me with a Kiss is kind of like an R&B type tune. This is kind of an interesting one to get. De La Soul is on here, who doesn't always kind of get features and that type of stuff. They're kind of more off to the side. They seem like they're alternative rap from what I remember. But this is very much like an electro kind of dance bop with like a very plush. Seal Me with a Kiss is like a very nice electro kind of dance bop. It's just plush and smooth. Good plush and smooth type track, and it's got a very good easy jive towards it. This is probably one of the more ones that there just need to be a couple more songs like this. Just some good kind of buttery smooth R&B type jive. This is another one that kind of has like that 90s kind of R&B type feel of it, which is interesting that Jessie J kind of had some of those tracks. I feel like Strip, Keep Us Together, and Seal Me With a Kiss do kind of have like some of that Salt and Peppa and kind of more like Spice Girls and just 90s R&B type feel towards it, stuff like that. A little bit of TLC if they had some bops. So I'm just pretty much thinking more of like Salt and Pepper, that type of stuff. 1991, 1992 type fare. It's just interesting kind of get some of these jivey type ones, but it is a nice highlight. Said Too Much is kind of like a differential tempo towards it. This one's kind of more like a chugging mid-tempo kind of bop. It's a power pop type tune, and it feels very new wave. Feels like something ripped out of the 80s or something like that. It's kind of one that like Weezer or other power pop type folks would do. It's just got very much like a kind of like this very much kind of has like an empowering and this is another one that has like an overcoming and empowering type feel towards it. It's kind of more like powerful kind of sounding as far as that kind of goes. Just some good, it is kind of a good dance tune though. It's very moody. I feel like this is a moody kind of song. Just kind of has some bickering towards it. It's just kind of amidst like the bickering type fare of it, but it is a good dance tune. It's just very much like a chugging along kind of power pop kind of tune as far as that kind of goes. It's just a nice one. I feel like this is kind of one that you can dance to, but it just has a little bit more palette for it, a little bit more stuff on its mind, more so than Strip or Sweet Talker or Bang Bang or some of those type ones, but it is a nice one. I would say that that virtually takes care of it. So to talk about the 7 songs I didn't enjoy, like I said, this is kind of a homely album that has a lot of straightforward, kind of more day-to-day and just kind of more daily living type fare towards it, where it's just not quite as much of like a wholesomely weekend album. I feel like it's kind of added as like a spice, but there are some songs in here like Fire, Personal, You Don't Really Know Me, and a little bit of You're Lost Unfound. They're just kind of a lot more sluggish and just kind of not so much house cleaning music, but just kind of sitting around the house, just kind of pondering and just kind of like a more upbeat and kind of, just more homely kind of ruminating about it. Not so much ruminating like you're going to get crunk and go out have a good time, but just kind of more of the ruminating of just kind of like daily living, kind of ruminating just within that context of just like small talk kind of variables as far as that kind of goes. And I think that like a couple extra ones, like the other three songs, which would be, I feel like Keep Us Together kind of had like some upbeat kind of pep towards it. This was definitely one that was 90s oriented, but I just didn't dig that one quite as much. I felt like it could have been, but that one was just a little bit more kind of Keep Us Together's cheeriness was just not quite one I vibed with as much. I liked the vibe, I liked her cheeriness on Ain't Been Done and Bang Bang and some of those type ones, but this one was just kind of more of like a more kind of earnest kind of one, more so than I would have wanted. But I feel like Getaway was just kind of like a more kind of piano type song that just was a little bit more glum and kind of switched the tone for like Bad Days and that type of stuff. Didn't really like that one as much either. And then Loud was just kind of like an arena pop type tune that was just kind of more empowering and kind of more like overcoming type tune, kind of similar to Masterpiece, but just didn't quite pull it off quite as well. So that's just kind of the concept. So me liking basically 6 tunes out of 15 plus 2 almost songs, I feel like that's approximately about half the album. I'm just going to go ahead and give this album like a 5.25 out of 10. I feel like that's decent. I feel like there's enough concept about it to be able to say it, but that's still, in terms of sheer full-blown songs that I liked on this album, that's less than half. And I feel like that's kind of the concept about it, where I feel like this has some good jive towards it, and I don't see Jessie J as a one-hit wonder like some folks may think because she just didn't have anything as blue. I don't see her as like a one-hit wonder just because she didn't have anything as blue collar large as Bang Bang, but I kind of feel like, it was kind of light on like songs that could have had that sort of valve, and I wonder why she didn't. Because I admit the songs on here, she didn't really try to make another song like Bang Bang. I mean, the dance songs are more kind of dance oriented and less SFW, but the concept about it is just kind of odd that that song was such a huge smash in like the blue collar makeshift kind of market, and then just not have been able, because that song came out like 3 months before this album did. So if she saw the success behind it, I don't know why she didn't try to make another song like it, which I would have taken. I would have liked to have seen some more blue collar gems to see what could have happened and could have lit the rest of the year up with that sort of concept. But I mean, it's just kind of where you get the makeshift tune, but there's just not enough of them. This album kind of falls short of like grade A quality just because it does have some good dance bops on here, but they're just so lightly altered and it just doesn't quite have like the true AAA type songs that it needs. I mean, I feel like Sweet Talker's good, Ain't Been Done is good, Burning Up is decent, but in terms of like a sheer knockout kind of song that you would buy this album for, it just doesn't really have that in spades. That's just kind of the problem. It does have some decent bops on here, and I feel like this is enough of like something to kind of warrant looking into, but it just is not like addictive and it's not wholesomely infectious. That's just kind of the concept. These are just kind of more fondness kind of songs where you may be fond of them, but they're not wholesomely like addictive kind of in terms of that quality. So that's this kind of thing. So 5.25 out of 10 is a little bit better than average, I would have to say. Could almost give it a 5.5, but I feel like it's just kind of, 5.25. So the social score, though, I will give like a 6.25 because I do feel like the 3 singles all did their duty. I feel like Masterpiece was at least a decent kind of blue collar bop. I feel like Masterpiece was like a good blue collar follow up, not quite as good as Bang Bang, but it served its purpose. And like Burning Up was like a nice, good dance bop that did have some variations if it just would have had less grating feel towards it. So that's this kind of thing, but it just had some decent jive on here. There are more than a couple dance bops, but for the most part, this is a pretty homely album, and it kind of has like a lot more just kind of central kind of, yeah, this is just definitely more of like a regular album. When you're looking for something just for a standard month, Monday through Friday, that type of stuff of just the standard commute of just that type fare, this is definitely something for that sort of concept. And you can even throw the occasional Saturday and Friday night in there as well. This is just kind of very much just like a pretty, you just pick a season, summer, fall, something like that, even winter in some cases. And this could be your rage pack and that type of stuff for just like a good month or two as far as that kind of goes. It's just kind of one that just fits right into like the makeshift kind of fold, has plenty of songs just for homeliness and more kind of like positive ruminating and that type of stuff, just more this regular sounding ruminating as far as that kind of goes. Not like the Eminem and NF type ruminating, but just kind of more like day to day kind of ruminating about it. There's some good stuff in there with some. I mean, not to complain wholesomely that badly because there is some good stuff on here. There is some good stuff on here like Bang Bang, Sweet Talker, Burning Up, Ain't Been Done, Seal Me with a Kiss. There are some great dance cuts, and even Strip's got some real good pep on here as far as that kind of goes. This is kind of the concept that is just kind of like probably I would say maybe 40% play, 60% work, and that sort of concept as far as that kind of goes. So it does have like a decent jive for like some good weekends in there, but for the most part, this is pretty much like a good regular sounding album of just the mid 2010s for like good blue collar kind of fare. So that's kind of the concept. In terms of the future, I would have to say that like Jessie J kind of like Jessie J hasn't really dropped as much. She hasn't been able to get a hit nearly as large as Bang Bang. It's too bad that hasn't happened. But I look after it like she did drop at least a couple more albums, supposedly one in 2018, then maybe like a Christmas album or something like that. But it's been a while, so I just wonder about it. But this is a pretty solid album to kind of have for like makeshift commute for a while.